Hey guys. Alright, I've been in Moab, Utah for 3 days now. It's the morning of my third day. And while I was out here, I rented a Mojo Ibis SL. The plan was to rent a Mojo Ibis HD, or an Ibis Mojo HD. But I guess the one I was going to rent broke, and so they gave me the SL instead. But this morning I'm going to switch this out for for another HD that they're having returned. So I've ridden this thing for 2 days now. The first day I rode it on Slick Rock, which is just a crazy trail. It's like 12.7 miles only on sand rock. It's just unlike anything I've ever ridden. I'm from Atlanta, and I live in the southeast, so we ride a lot of like loose over hard pack, real rooty kind of rocky terrain with just regular kind of mountain biking. To me, that's kind of what mountain biking is for me. And out here on the open sand rock is just a totally different experience. The only thing I can think of that's similar is part of the 1996 Olympic mountain biking trail in Conyers, Georgia, is on granite from Stone Mountain, and that's kind of similar, but the granite is actually a lot more slippery than the sand rock. I mean, the tires, they're nothing special. They're, if you can see it, they're WTB tires, which are not the best kind of tires. They hook up on the sand rock and stick like crazy. And sand rock, the loop had just some of the most intense climbs I've ever seen. They're super, super steep. So steep that if you stopped and didn't get off your bike the right way, you'd go backwards over your rear tire. They were that steep. It was pretty crazy. It was a lot of fun. And just to tell you a little bit about this bike and about my history of mountain biking, I started with a hardtail rigid fork Trek way back in the day, and that's how I learned to mountain bike. And then I moved to a Trek Y3, which was an aluminum dual suspension bike, and it bobbed like crazy. And if you don't know what bobbing is pedal induced. So as you're cranking on the cranks right here, that force, your weight is compressing the suspension like this, and that's pedal induced bobbing. And a lot of a lot of mountain biking companies have come out with different suspension designs to reduce or take away bobbing. No one can really take it away completely yet, but they can handle it pretty well now. And then from that Y3, that heavy aluminum Y3, I went to a carbon fiber Trek Y22 cross-country racing bike. And that was a great bike. I loved it. It had a lockout rear suspension, so you wouldn't get the bobbing on climbing or hard pedaling, hard attempts at pedaling, sprinting, that kind of thing. And then I'd say, I don't know, maybe 8-9 years later, I bought, this is 3 years ago, I bought a Stump Jumper Pro Carbon, and it's a 2007 Stump Jumper, and that's my current bike right now. And it's got 120 millimeters of travel. The new ones I think have 140, and I liked it a lot. It took a little getting used to because it was a lot more upright riding position than my Trek, and on steep climbs I really had to put my shoulders to the handlebars in order to keep that front wheel planted. And this bike is actually even more upright due to the head angle and some of the other suspension geometry. Now, this bike climbs like nobody's business. It climbs better than my Stump Jumper. The suspension is Ibis's design. They have this new link right here that didn't come on the older Mojos. This is called the Lopes link. Brian Lopes helped design this with Ibis to add stiffness in the suspension. And Ibis uses Dave Weagle's DW link. A couple of bike companies have licensed him to help design their suspension. And what the DW link is, if you can see it, it's this red link under here, and then this link right here, the Lopes link, and along with this pivot point. And what that does is it helps to reduce suspension induced or climbing induced pedal bob. Now, me and my buddy, we both rented Mojo Ibises. There's his right there. That's a crossbar for the car rack. Now he kind of complained. He rides a Cannondale Prophet, which is very much a cross-country racing bike, and he kind of complained that his front tire was coming off on steeper climbs. And I think that's just because he's not used to riding a suspension or a bike with geometry as slack as this. And by slack, I mean the head angle is slacker, meaning flatter, rather than steeper, meaning vertical. It's just that's one of the main issues with bikes and their suspension. How the head tube angle is set up really depends on how well the bike will climb. The steeper the head angle, the better the climber. The slacker the head angle, the better the descender. And this bike, you can't really call this bike an all mountain bike because due to the travel, I think it's 140 millimeters of travel, front and rear. Now this bike is obviously a rental bike, so it's spec'd with kind of lower end components, but not bottom shelf components, just kind of, I guess, mid-grade. The cranks are Shimano SLX, derailleurs are SLX. These are my pedals that I took off my Specialized. I don't really care for this SLX stuff. The cranks are thicker in here, so my shoes, I can show you on this side. See how thick the crank is at the bottom bracket there? My shoes really hit the cranks, which I wasn't a fan of. And also, when I sit on the bike, it sags the 20%, which is what you need for the bike. But these cables, I don't know if this is how it comes, or if the guy at the bike shop just set it up like this. These cables loosen and stick out, and my calves hit these as I'm pedaling, which is a little annoying, but I'm sure that could be fixed just with a shorter cable housing. Now, this bike descends like nobody's business. It descends much better than my stump jumper, and it climbs, actually, I think, better than my stump jumper. This bike may very well be my next bike. Well, actually, they just came out with a new one that's called the Mojo SLR, and what that is it takes cues from the Ibis Mojo HD, which has a better carbon layout. It has a through axle rear, so it adds a lot of stiffness in the rear. This has like 15 QR in the front, which that has to do with the fork, not the frame. And this is the second bike I've ridden with a 15 QR. My stump jumper just has a regular quick release, a little quick release skewer, and I'm not kidding. The 15 QR adds so much front end stiffness, it's not even funny. I mean, it's noticeable right out of the gate with a bike. I mean, I've never experienced anything so noticeable in my life. Well, that tubeless tires is actually one of the most noticeable differences I've ever seen on a bike when I converted to tubeless. If you haven't converted to tubeless, you need to now. It's amazing. It'll change your riding style completely. You'll ride so much better.